Hello, everybody. Welcome to another preview edition of AEW Dynamite here on pwtorch.com's YouTube page. I'm your host, Tyler Sage. As always, thank you for joining me. It's good to be chatting about Dynamite with you all. I feel like it's been too long. Zach covered it last week, and then all the Rumble, Cody stuff Zach and I hadn't talked about for a minute. So we focused most of Fireside Chat last week on WWE. So and only briefly talked on Dynamite. So if you want any other questions from last week's Dynamite that you had for me, please ask them in the chat. Hazan, hello. Thank you for joining as always. Good to have you. And we'll be previewing tonight's post-Valentine's Day, February 15th, 2023 edition of Dynamite on TPS. As is a negative trend, obviously this is a little different, but Gary Jarrett passed away recently. Jeff Jarrett will be, wrestling tonight in a 8-man tag to honor his father. So, wishing the best for the Jarrett family. And excited to see Jeff in action tonight. I'm curious how the crowd in Laredo, Texas will treat that and how Jeff will react, right? Will he say, like, you do a little tip of the hat and then go into heel mode? That's kind of what I would think. But, hopefully he gets some support there for the passing of his father. And him wrestling feels like the right thing. So, obviously way different than the Jay Briscoe passing, just from an age difference standpoint and the tragic nature of that. But, we've got that. We've got Mr. Bernie Lee, et cetera. There's been a lot of close, if not people on the roster, but people close to the ridge, people on the roster having deaths recently within AEW. So hopefully that stops and does not continue the way it has been. But wishing the best for the Jarrett family. Again, at the top of the show here, we'll get into all 6 matches that are scheduled here tonight and talk about them. But Tracy's here. Hello, Tracy. Thank you for joining. I am back. And then Hazan says AEW is a placeholder spot right now. Yeah, I mean, I think you could take that a couple different ways, Hazan. But, even Tony Khan on Twitter said that this is the road. Oh, I pulled my mic out. Look at that. Is the road to revolution. So please bear with me for 1 second as I reattach it. Oh, no. This is great television, I know. All right. I think I got it somewhat. All right, well, I'm just going to hold it. That's how much I care for you guys. I'm just going to hold my mic because it is broken. So, yeah, it is. Let me know if you cannot hear me. If you can't hear me, no need to spot anything. But, so as Tony Khan said, tonight is the road to revolution, the start of it. So we are, if I check my calendar, I think we're 3 episodes of Dynamite away before the pay-per-view. So we are, right now we've got obviously the main event in place, but we've got to settle what the tag titles, the women's title, the trios titles, if you're going to have a TNT title, if you're going to put any Ring of Honor belts on the line, if you're going to have, a Chris Jericho, Ricky Starks, if you're going to have a Wardlow, Samoa Joe match, what's going to go on it? Are you going to have an All-Atlantic title? Are you going to have Jade in action? All that sort of stuff, right? Because right now we have, is Adam Cole going to wrestle on the pay-per-view? So all those things have to be established here. So, tonight we will start to figure that out. And, I'm excited to see that. Yeah, Adam Cole match. Thank you, Hazan. Hopefully tonight, if you can have it. But yeah, his first match back, that feels like a big moment in the show. And yeah, I mean, of all the spots for AEW pay-per-views, this one, Revolution, has always felt like the one that, it's always in the middle of WrestleMania season. Sometimes it's in February, like this time of year, and then sometimes early March, like it is this year. So it's always felt like the lesser of all of the pay-per-views. So, I think that's kind of a spot to be in. It's like you said, a placeholder spot right now is where AEW is. But I'm still excited for tonight's show. I thought last week's show was an incredibly worked show, and with good stories. And I think the MJF Brian Danielson. I said Daniel Bryan too much in recent weeks talking WWE, but Brian Danielson and MJF match has come together nicely. I was not a fan of it at all to begin with, and now I like where they've pivoted to and where that is. So, I think we're gonna have 6 too many matches on the Revolution card as we typically do with the AEW pay-per-view. I think Tony Khan is like the more is more mindset as opposed to less is more, as Paul Levesque has established in WWE. But if we have 1 or 2 matches on the books right now, we need to add 10 to 11 more, and that'll happen through Dynamites and Rampages here as we go. But I think all those will be starting to establish tonight, and there's sort of a cadence. If we get 3 or 4 between Dynamite and Rampage this week, that feels like a pretty good cadence to establish, if not outright show the graphic of the match, but have it pretty well established. Like, is Ricky Starks and Jericho going to be one-on-one, or is that going to be some sort of tag match with Action Andretti and somebody else, right? So we'll see. All that sort of stuff should come into frame tonight. But let's talk about some of the matches on the card. Not as many, what I would say, like easy main events and easy openers as I tend to like to do. I mean, to me, the one main event, we can start right here, that makes the most sense, especially with the amount that the story has been told from a AEW perspective, is the women's triple threat match tonight. And that would be Toni Storm taking on Ruby Soho and Britt Baker. And that's a triple threat match, a fatal 3-way, if you will, if it's WWE. So a 3-person match. Everybody's for themselves. So, what does Ruby Soho do as a story tonight? And if you look at the rest of the card, unless you're doing the sentimental thing, I think I can open it with Jeff Jarrett and that whole thing, but it doesn't feel like a good close. And there's no Samoa Joe, there's no Darby Allin who, decide things. So yeah, the women's match tonight, it's what does Ruby do, right? And that's where we are. If Ruby decides to join the Outsiders, as you would think, right, with her coming from WWE, does that set her up then? Does she pin Britt Baker, and that sets up a match for her against Jamie Hayter at the pay-per-view? That makes a ton of sense. Does she decide to not do that and join and help Britt, and maybe Britt wins or Ruby wins and maybe can get there the same way? Or does she do like some Hikaru Shida stuff be kind of confused as to where she stands, and does something not super intelligent for her character to do, and then there's kind of a weird story, and then that's the third option. But so we'll talk about this match a little bit, Zach, but it's booked, and he is he said he was doing it for his dad, so I think he's there more because of it than anything, right, to honor his father. But would I be there? Probably not, but we'll see. I think it'd be a nice emotional moment for Jeff and the fans. Hopefully everyone treats it accordingly. And so again, back to the women's match, which I think will main event. If you look at the rest of the card, I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on anything else that would main event in the spot. And again, the only thing I can think of is the Jeff Jarrett match, but or maybe it's some sort of promo with MJF or somebody else to set up a match. Maybe that's more a main event. But so we got this. And so I don't really know where they're going. I tend to think, and I'm curious what you guys think, and you're talking about Sheeta's out injured, Serena Deeb, some other women that we would like to see in this story. Serena Deeb is an original, I guess you could say. And or not, she can flex both ways because she was in WWE at one point. But like Ruby, of all the people from WWE, feels like the most natural babyface, especially from her comeback and she's working with Willow, the blade job she did a couple weeks ago. All that, just to me, if I'm Tony Khan, she's the one WWE person that I think could buck the trend of this story and side with the AEW originals. And, that's the story I would tell. But if you want to give her a match for the world title at Revolution, it makes more sense for her to side with the WWE people and get there. But, I just, I don't know. I don't know what's going to go. I don't know, like Sheeta being a heel was what I wanted when that originally happened. And she threw the kendo stick in, and then they kind of did the whole switcheroo with Saraya and Tony Storm going heel, which I do in hindsight like. So in the moment, I thought it was kind of dumb booking, and I don't love the way that Sheeta looked in that situation. But so that being said, like what I want to happen with the story has the opposite has kind of worked out better for me. So does that mean that since I want Ruby to remain a babyface, is that going to work better if she goes heel, gets a title shot against Jamie, is the person to lose to Jamie, and then kind of gets back into traffic and is a mid card heel? I don't know if that's the best story, and her being a babyface and being the one to maybe always be fledgling back and forth as the story of like all her old friends, quote unquote, are on the other side, and she's defending all these Willow and Jamie and Britt and Sheeta and all that stuff. But that makes it intriguing for a Blood and Guts if they do that as well. So I'm curious. Do you guys have any thoughts on Ruby and the direction she goes? Kind of where you want her to go and where you think she'll go tonight. And if it's not her, either way, heel or face or kind of indifferent, is there another opponent for Jamie Hayter at this point that's not a Saraya, or I don't think they're do Tony again. She took it off of Tony, so so I'm just curious, but I think the women's division story, while not being, it's kind of like in the Hangman Page and Kenny Omega long-term story of like it's not really being told well on TV for the general viewing audience that maybe only watches Dynamite and that's all they think about wrestling week in and week out. But for those of us that are into the sport tremendously and know all the backstories of all the characters before they were even in the company, I think the story is intriguing and I want to see more of it. And this being in the main event, I think would be the case. But I see Ruby teaming up with Britt in some way, shape, or form and pinning Tony Storm, and then maybe she's the number one contender. And there's some contention there that she's a babyface, but she's, Britt is trying to tell Jamie that she is, in the long run going to join with the WWE folk. I don't know, but I think there's some story here that they're laying the groundwork. And I don't know if we'll get the final answer here. Like maybe Ruby finally turns heel at Revolution when she's got the title shot and she almost wins because of that or what have you. But we'll see. But I'm intrigued. And, I think ever since Ruby came back, I've been pleasantly surprised by the amount of time she's gotten in the story that has been told with her. I think it's been kind of best case scenario for her and her character, kind of what I would have expected when she first came over as one of those first big free agents coming over to WWE or AEW from WWE. So yeah, I think that main events, I think Ruby gets a win somehow, and it's not totally established, at least to the minds of Jamie and Britt Baker, what side she's on in the win. But I think it can build to a match between her and Jamie, which should be intriguing. So that's where I am there. Got a lot of other, as Hazan said earlier, again, placeholder matches, not, bad matches, but just kind of feel like we're building out a card. Let's see who's available this week and what we can do. So we've got Blackpool Combat Club taking on Roosh and Preston Vance. I wrote it down. I didn't see a graphic. If anyone can help me, I assume this is Claudio and Wheeler taking on both of them. I doubt Brian is doing that again. And I think Moxley's still out for a little bit. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my interpretation of what this match is Claudio and Yuta versus Roosh and Preston Vance, which is intriguing in its own right. That's like a good 8:30 match. And it gives, I'm sure Roosh is not super happy about taking all these losses since he's joined AEW. So it might be a good way to get him and Vance a win. Do you want to do something with them as a tag team? I don't know. But if there is some sort of story to tell with Roosh and Danielson after the pay-per-view. So, if there's something to tell there, like I would see Roosh and Danielson go again. So having Roosh and Vance defeat Blackpool Combat Club here would make sense. But, Claudio is also the Ring of Honor champion. So you could tell a Roosh and Claudio story here to build to the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view match, which I think, actually, as I look over here, Zach might have said as an option here as well. So Mox and Claudio. Okay. Thank you, Zach. And thank you. I think someone else said that earlier too. So Mox and Claudio, big difference between Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. So I would think Blackpool Combat Club go over here. But yeah, you can still set up some sort of Roosh and Claudio match, former champion versus current champion, hard hitting match. I don't know if Roosh is going to do the spinneroonie, if you will, in the middle of the ring. I would love to see it. Be a change in his character inside and outside the ring. So would like to see that. But yeah, just get Mox and Roosh a win. Mox and Claudio a win here against Roosh and Vance. And, see Vance on Dynamite would be good. I feel like he's been, dark and Rampage since his mask came off. So it'd be good to see him get some action in there as well and see, kind of some scouting for the big guys, of all the big guys that have been with the company for a long time. Wardlow, Hobbs, Vance, and I guess you can even say Brian Cage and Lance Archer would kind of round out the big guys roster division. Vance has been the one that's had the potential for a long time, but has not really done a ton on TV. So I'm curious to see what he looks like in a big spot here. So we'll see. And Bryant is coming in with the Roosh should win the Atlantic title. I think a Roosh and Orange Cassidy match might be the most intriguing match I could think of. With Roosh laying in thick those chops and Orange Cassidy trying to nonchalantly not sell them. I don't think it would work for a while, but I think it'd be certainly an interesting match to say the least. So we got that. That could open the show. I think that's very possible. We also have what I think could open the show as well, or close again. Like I said, we've got the Acclaimed. I have Acity written down. That's Daddy Ass and Orange Cassidy. So, if they ever do a tag team, I think Acity would be a great, Orange Acity maybe would be a great name, versus Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh. I think this match is there to potentially set up stuff down the line. I know we've already had Lethal and Jarrett take on the Acclaim, but it seems like Tony Khan loves to come back to tag team feuds. So I certainly think that we'll get Acclaimed and the Gun Club at the pay-per-view for the titles. But after that, you could have Lethal and Jarrett. If they win this match by pinning, Billy Gunn or Orange Cassidy or something, you set up for an All-Atlantic title challenge for a Jeff Jarrett type, or you can set up Jarrett and Lethal for another tag match after the pay-per-view. So obviously this is in place because of the passing of Jerry Jarrett, Jeff's father, and he wanted to wrestle tonight. So that's the main reason, but you can always build it into something else. I think Tony Khan will do that and tends to do that. So I think actually a win for Jarrett and company tonight makes a lot of sense and would be good. And as Hassan says, Double J has been good so far, and I begrudgingly agree. I think he's been a great addition, as I was one of the biggest critics when he first came in. It seems like he is not fully taking control of the company behind the scenes, and is actually doing some good work with the house shows, and his character on TV has been exactly what Jeff Jarrett in 2023 should be, and that's an elevated Dan Lambert type, which I think is something Tony Khan is always going to have on the show based on the 4-year history of the show thus far. So so we've got that. I've got Jeff Jarrett and company winning that. We've got 3 more matches. One is exciting, so we'll save that for last. The other 2 feel like maintenance matches, if you will, in preparation for keeping momentum going into the pay-per-view. And both these guys are kind of in the same spot, but in different ways, right? So first we got Hangman Page taking on Kip Sabian. So I think this is a relatively quick, under 10-minute match where, Hangman's able to dominate, show off his moveset, and get a win against a heel that will, rile up the crowd, rip some, if Penelope's down there, she'll rip some signs up, maybe try and get some beer and then not, whatever, all that sort of stuff, typical heel tactics, but give Hangman a win after his, I guess essentially loss of his feud against Jon Moxley, which I was surprised about, and go there. And then we'll kind of, dovetail that into Jungle Boy, Jack Perry taking on Brian Cage. Get a win. And this is a more profound win, but you give Jungle Boy a win against a big guy. I think this match goes a little longer. Obviously, Cage can work tremendously. I didn't say all that, Zach. I know my biases on Mr. Sabian, and I don't want to just bury him for no reason. The match has not happened yet, so I think him and Hangman will be fine. And Sabian, if he works out the rest of his contract as a jobber heel like Brian Cage, I think that's totally fine. So, but back to Cage. Cage been putting on some great matches, had some great dance partners recently, and I think Jack Perry would be the bottom of the list of guys he's worked with recently, just from an in-ring standpoint. And that's not to say Jungle Boy's bad. I just think like against a guy like Cage, you cannot tell a similar story. He's going to get, beat down 75, 80, 95, 90% of the match and come back and get the big win and get that underdog win, which is totally fine. Like that's going to be a good story. It'll be different than the Page and Kip Sabian story, I would presume. So I like that. But, I think Jack Perry wins. I think Hangman Page wins. And I think they're both on the trajectory of trying to get that like third or fourth, biggest babyface on the show spot. So does that coalesce itself? We have not had a tournament set up yet. You could do that and have a tournament final show up at Revolution. Yes. And Zach, you are beating me to it. But yeah, face of the Revolution ladder match. It feels like both these guys are going to be in that with maybe like a Swerve Strickland as a heel persona who can also work and do stuff and, fit in, an Ethan Page and whoever else you want. Just, that sort of level of guy in the company. But it feels like Page and Jack Perry are both being set up for that similar place. Like they don't have a singles match per se, unless we do Moxley and Page again at the pay-per-view, which doesn't feel like we're doing, but we'll see. But it feels like getting them both wins here, establishing that maybe tonight or next week, and having them as the top two babyface contenders to win that future title shot. But we'll see. And, Hazan says he can see Cage getting the win. And I think that would be good. I think Cage has earned it recently, honestly. He's been really good. And, that would probably be a sign that he's staying. But we'll see. And Zach, we'll see. There's 13 matches probably. So, but what do they do besides that? It feels like there's not a ton of them to do. Yeah, okay, cool. I appreciate you being so quick with that. You got Mox and Page in a Texas Death match and Lee versus Swerve. But yeah, all that can happen tonight or Rampage or the next couple weeks, but it's got to all be happening pretty quickly. And it doesn't feel like we're on that journey, but I think at the end of tonight, I would be happy to be proven wrong. I'd rather Page and Swerve get their own singles matches than be lumped into a ladder match, if I'm being completely honest. So we'll see. But I think both of them are on the same trajectory nonetheless, and both get wins here to kind of go into the pay-per-view strong. I don't know if either of them have a match until the pay-per-view on TV. This might be it to give time to tell other stories, but we'll see. But I've got Page and Jungle Boy Jack Perry getting wins tonight. All right, we got one more match, and this is, I'm glad to see Mark Briscoe's continuing to be on television. There was a video from the farm in Delaware where, which is very classic Briscoe, so I was happy to see that. But basically, Mark Sterling offered his services to Mark Briscoe to, be his manager, have him earn some real money, stop being a chicken farmer, etc. And, Mark Briscoe did not take kindly to that. And Josh Woods got involved. And I'm sure they'll show this video recap. But, it was very classic, like Ring of Honor style, the way this match was set up. But we'll have Mark Briscoe and Josh Woods in action tonight. And the way AEW has been booking main events recently, obviously they've been mainly TNT title focused, but it feels like this sort of story is a way that Tony Khan likes to end the show with a babyface kind of getting a big win, like Mark did a number of weeks ago when the day after Jade passed away, but 9 days when they were finally allowed to have a tribute on television. So, but yeah, I think it could main event, but I think the women's three-way match should main event pretty easily based on the level, the caliber on the show tonight. But Moxley involved in the BCC match against Rush and Vance makes that a contender too. But I think the women's storyline has been good, and I'd like to see it get the 20 minutes at the end of the show to really um, tell that story. And as we've seen with AEW ratings, for almost the entire history, the week previous has kind of dictated the rating for next week, right? So last week's episode I thought was tremendous from a just television viewing experience and entertainment level wise. So, and it was like 900,000, 899, something like that. And typically when you have a really good, strong episode of Dynamite, the next week is inflated from a rating standpoint, even if the show is not as good. So I think we get that here, and I think you give a chance to your women in the division to, as my dog agrees, to tell the story and have the women's title match for once feel like a top 3 match going into the pay-per-view, which it has not felt like that ever. And I think there's a good run here with Jamie and Britt and Saraya and Toni Storm and Ruby Soho and Jade. I know, Bryant, you love to hear that. There feels like there's 5-6 women that really could tell big main event stories and have, quality main event level matches in 2023. And AEW can kind of chip away at the stigma versus WWE, which I think is unearned at this point because I think WWE has been slacking in their women's division as of late. And I think most of you would agree. But that's where I am. I think tonight's episode should be totally fine, a maintenance episode, if you will. Some solid matches on the table, but more to see like, hey, what is this pay-per-view we're building to? Because it is not super fleshed out at this point, and I hope we get 3-4 matches locked down for tonight. So that'll wrap it up for my preview of the show tonight. I appreciate all of you joining me. I do not appreciate my mic collapsing on me live, but I appreciate all of you for sticking around and finding out how that went. So until tomorrow, Zach and I will be discussing this show, I think, in more depth than we did last week. Kind of give a status on where we are with AEW and obviously previewing Elimination Chamber as well. But I think, Dynamite and Elimination Chamber would be the top 2 things. And all of you guys, again, I appreciate you joining. And if you did not see, after you're done with this or done, if you got to watch at the beginning, whatever, Stephanie Chase joined the team this week. And she dropped her first video this morning. It was a Dynamite recap or an AEW recap. I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but Stephanie will be doing, at least 2 videos a week for us. So very excited to have her join the team. And she's got her own channel as well. So make sure you check out her channel, which I think we've put in all the show notifications. So you can check her out and subscribe to her as well. So please check that out if you did miss that. And thanks as always. And I will catch you guys tomorrow.